Hello, everyone, and welcome to Her Time. I'm your host, Rosalind Feliciano, and I'm here with my beautiful friends, amazing friends, Daisy, Jeanette, and Regina. And we are going to discuss the topic of anger. And have you ever been angry with God? But we are going to look at this topic from a different lens or perspective because some may not have necessarily been angry with God, but rather a situation that caused that feeling of anger. And so when we look at the word anger, it's an emotional response of a perceived threat or violation or injustice. So we have a few questions that we want to just throw out there and answer and get, your feedback. Um, is it okay to be angry with God? And this question is going to be directed towards Jeanette. Is it okay to be angry with God? And has there ever been a situation where you became angry with God?
Hi, Rosalind,
Hi.
Rosie. I grew up always believing that you could never be mad at God. You could never be angry with God. You could never question God in any way. You could never, like, don't even dare think that way or act that way or whatever. I believe that's how I was raised. I don't know if it was my family or the church that I grew up in. I grew up in a kind of very strict um, church that was very like, oh no, you don't. So I would never even dare, like, even question God. And so basically it was kind of like you get what you get and you don't fret. That's it. You don't, whatever comes your way, you just have to deal with it. You have to pray through it and,
Hmm.
and never question God. Now, have I ever been angry? um, like I said, I grew up thinking that I couldn't, but inside there was times where when I was younger, and now looking back, I think, well, some of it was stuff that I brought on myself by poor decisions, not listening to godly counsel. But yeah, I went through a time where I had gone and I had gotten into a very um, mentally, verbally, physically abusive relationship, and it was very toxic and very, and so I became really mad. I remember one time uh leaving this, which I wish I could go back in time and like erase that, but I remember calling someone and leaving this voicemail on their voicemail on their phone, uh, and just like, "Ah, why?" And I was just like yelling, and I'm sure I said all kinds of crazy things. And but anyway, I was just like, not only was I angry though, I was also just felt um almost, I don't know, like what it like, is there a conspiracy against me? Is everyone because this one of the situations I had gotten in or happened, several people knew about things that were happening and I didn't. And so I felt very uh, like, is the whole world against me type of thing. And God,
Hmm.
how could you let this happen to me?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of my story.
How did you come out of that time of just being angry, you know?
Well, I it took a while. It really took a while because for a while I was just sad and angry and um, felt like I was unlovable, like there must be something wrong with me. God, why would you make me this way? Is there something wrong with me? And I know, obviously, I know now that those were lies that were being fed to me by the enemy and by my ex
Hmm.
person in
Right.
my relationship. Um, but what happened, I think, first of all, of course, just having a humbling, uh, I'm gonna throw myself down and just bawl it out
Yeah.
and have my time with the Lord. But
Yes.
like I pretty much just started a whole new life. I got away from the situation where I was at and I needed to get away. And so in that time that I was away, I was able to seek God and just start a new life and kind of leave it behind. But then as I started really getting, having a relationship with the Lord and really just humbling myself before the Lord and having real, raw, real conversations with God. And then finally learning, like, you know what? God is a big enough God to handle my questions, my fears,
Yes.
my
Yes.
doubts, my anger, my hurt, my tears. He's able to handle it all. I don't have to hold anything back from him. He can handle it. He's a big
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, then it was like, okay, God was working inside of me.
Yeah. Like I was raised in church, and in a very strict church. And we were taught that, you cannot ever get angry with God. And there was a time in my own life where I was very angry with God because my parents had gotten a divorce. I was a daddy's girl. The dynamic of my family had changed. I didn't understand like all the issues around what was happening, but now I do, right? And as the years went by, I began to realize what was happening. But I was very angry to the point where I had told the Lord, I don't need you, and I'm going to make my life without you. And boy, was I wrong, because through those years, I experienced things that I wouldn't want anyone else to experience, right? So God had to bring me down to my knees. And really, I had to cry out to God because I was a mess. I was a mess, and I realized how much I needed God. But healing needed to take place, forgiveness needed to take place, because there was a lot of hurt there, and I was just angry with the situation, my parents' situation, and the question of why did this happen. And I was a adolescent, and as I became a teenager, that's when it all started. The enemy was out to destroy my life, um, and I just thank God for his mercy and his grace, because um, the prayers of others brought me back to
Mhm.
the Lord, and I was able to find that forgiveness and that healing. So it was definitely an experience. It was definitely a time of growth, and though I didn't understand what was happening at the time, later on I did. But I don't know, ironic thing of it all is that my parents, after 38 years, are back together. So, they remarried, and so that was an unspoken prayer that I had for years. And never did I think that I always thought of the possibility of them getting remarried, and that was an answered prayer. So to God be the glory, right? How things happen. But
Well, Rosalie, let me
yeah.
interject here a second because, I think about the forgiveness journey, right, that needs to happen. It's part of this whole anger experience that we have. But I know that part of the struggle for people who are in a position to forgive, and that's where, their healing might even start at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the big things going on is that we feel like if we forgive, it's almost like giving people permission to hurt us,
Right.
to do things. So even the idea of um, forgiveness for the wrongs, which is again part of our healing journey. How did you deal with that? How did you deal with, okay, I need to forgive, but how do I do that? You know, I heard Roseline just kind of come to a surrender place, you know, like I'm just going to throw myself at the feet of Jesus kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but how do we get there? You know, how do we go
I
there?
Yeah, I think it was a process, a process of just surrendering, a process of letting go, and a process of allowing God to just take ownership of my heart and to deal and not only take ownership of my heart, but just being reminded that I can't change the circumstances. I can't change the past. The past happened. That was a decision that my parents made. And so I had to come to that realization that it wasn't my fault, you know. So it
Mm.
was a process, a journey. Many times at the retreats, falling, at the feet of the Lord and just crying out and just again surrendering,
Yeah,
but it was definitely a journey and a
yeah,
process of healing and journaling. One of the ways that I feel that and one of the ways, not only ways, but therapeutically, like for me, writing. So I journaled a lot. And so that really helped as well. But I think it was just a moment of realizing that this was not my fault. This was my parents' fault. They made that decision. I just
yeah,
carried it as well. So
yeah. And
yeah.
I think we need to be comfortable enough to say to God, hey, I really don't want to do this right now. I don't want to forgive. I'm really mad. I'm really
Mm,
hurt. But as long as we, even in those moments of resistance, the one we're taking it to is God. God knows what to do with it. It's like what Jeanette was saying about He can handle my anger, my sadness. He can handle my questions, my doubts. It's
yeah.
that. It's just knowing that as long as we're going to God, He's going to do it. We don't need to create our own formula of healing, you know.
Right. Right.
He does that.
And just to add, like this transpired when I came back to the Lord, because mind you, when I was away, that's where the anger had
Yeah,
festered in my heart. And I was just going to live life without God. And boy, was I wrong. And it wasn't until I encountered God and I rededicated my life to the Lord was that the journey began, and I started realizing just
yeah,
a lot of different little things that I had to just let go
right.
of. Hmm.
Yeah,
So my next question is, has there been a situation, and this is either for Regina or Daisy, has there ever been a situation that has made you angry, maybe not specifically towards God, but an issue in life, and how did you deal with that? How did you find healing, if, or peace?
Okay. So um I was thinking about this, and like I don't think I've ever like I don't feel like I've ever been angry with God, and maybe because I thought that I wasn't supposed to, but I don't know that I ever said, "Oh, I'm mad at God." I I always felt like I knew where the anger the anger started, and it was usually that I would be angry with people,
Mm-hmm.
and you know people that usually people that are supposed to love God. And so
Mm,
I felt like I was hurt by people that were supposed to be Christians, were supposed to love God. And, then I was hurt by them. And so I don't think I ever said, "Oh, God, I'm mad at you."
mm,
But it was more like, "God, these are your people."
yeah.
why, why are they doing these things, or why are they
yeah,
acting this way towards me? And, but I think that that's just life. Life happens, and people, are people, and the hurting people hurt people,
That is true.
and so I don't know that I ever have felt, this overwhelming hurt or anger that, it just like knocked me off my path or my journey with the Lord.
Okay.
But I do feel like I have been hurt, and it did make me angry towards people. And honestly, I'm the type of person that I just can't hold a grudge to save my life. Like seriously, that's just how I am. Um and so if there were people that came up to me and were like, were the people that hurt me or the person that hurt me, I don't think that I'd be like mad or hurt them back or try and get back at them. I might ignore them or even be really fake. No, just kidding. I'd be like, hi, hey, it's good to see you, or then walk away and be like, "Oh, I'm glad they're not in my life." But honestly, I don't think I've ever really gotten like angry. The one time I did question God, because maybe this is another subject, but I questioned like what was God thinking when he moved me to Arizona and then moved me back to Salt Lake. And I was like, what are you thinking? Like, I love it in Arizona. And that's the one time where I was like, I don't get what you're doing here. I don't get it. But other than that, like I really feel like,
Now, do you get it though?
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's where we need to get then. Is like, I know it's easier said than done sometimes, but like whenever I do like, God, why would that, 99.9% of the time that I can remember, it's probably 100% of the time, but like I can always look back and be, oh, that's why, God,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I'm similar because I can't remember, in reflecting on these questions, it was like, I can't remember a time when I've been mad at God. And I get people a lot in terms of who think and blame God for what happens in their lives. But then there's a positive there for me, that I can hear and I can see. And it's the reason that people get mad with God might actually be because they see God as the all powerful, all knowing, God
Yes.
controls everything. So we're actually giving God credit for having full control, right,
That's good.
of everything that happens, which is great. But we also need to realize that God, in His grace, gave us free will. We get to choose, we get to make decisions, right? So in that, I think, well, I do have free will. So there is no need for me to be angry with God, because I did, Jeanette was talking about her own decisions. Like, I get to make my decisions. So sometimes it is just that I'm just seeing God as the all control God, all knowing God, but God is not a puppet master, right? We don't have little wires connected to our limbs, and He doesn't move us around as He sits on His throne in heaven. So we need to realize that. As I wanted to add that, as a counselor, as a therapist, I've come to the realization, as my field has come to the realization, that anger is really a secondary emotion. And what does that mean? It means that when someone comes in and says, I'm just angry, I'm angry at everybody, I just find myself, blowing up, exploding at people, we're going to go deeper. Where is that anger seated? Because sometimes it isn't anger. Anger has become this protective shield, that we create or allow to be created. But it's really about, I'm sad, I am so
Mm,
sad. I am so hurt. I'm so pained sometimes by those people who we have trusted to do better because they are godly people, because they follow a set of righteous standards. So that's our expectation of them. But we need to realize that anger is coming from somewhere else. The seed was planted
right.
at some point, and the job of a counselor, the job of a healing process is that we get to whatever that core is. I've also worked with people who want to get it done, like, okay, I'm just going to forgive, and how many times did we deal with at the women's retreat? We dealt with women but I forgave that. I forgave that. And after conversation, it's like, no, the seed was still there. The seed was left
Mm,
there, so we need to realize that anger is a response. It's a protective response that we have to some deeper pain. And we need
mm,
to deal with the deeper pain. But the only way that we can deal with the deeper pain, because it is hard, it's going to be difficult, is if we go to God and we surrender that to Him and allow Him to take us through. Rosaline said it's a process. It's not instantaneous. It
right.
cannot happen well without God in the first place, so we need to remember that, I think.
I
Absolutely.
like
I love it.
that.
So
It can't
what
happen
happens if you
well.
get angry like on a day-to-day basis at your children because they're not picking up their stuff?
Well,
What's the
that
Well,
deeper issue there, Daisy?
is it anger, or is it that
frustration.
I'm
it hurts
sad.
me that they're not considering me? They're
Right.
not thinking about me. So even that has an answer, because yeah, I've raised children, and I get frustrated, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, but what bothers me is, first of all, there are those things that I can just forgive. There are times when I'll pick up something after my husband, and I'm not going to allow myself, right? I know what ticks me off. I
Mhm.
know what can strike a chord in me, whatever phrase we want to use. But I also am very quick to, it's not a big deal. Considering all he does for me, considering all that he goes out of his way to make sure I'm accommodated or I'm comfortable, I can forgive those things. The other thing is, Regina, with the kids just kind of repeatedly, maybe it's time we need to sit down because I don't feel loved and I don't feel considered. Maybe that's the conversation that needs to
Yeah.
happen, because that's getting me to an angry place and I don't want to get there. So there are situations I completely avoid. There are people who I just have to walk away from or not spend a lot of time with. I'm a grown up. I can say no, thank you, and that's it. So yeah, knowing your triggers is another really good thing. And we're
Facts.
at the place where we're mature enough to know what gets to us, and if we're not courageous enough to confront it, then we need to learn how to walk away from it
Mm.
and avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been something that I have dealt with for a while, and just learning to just say, I'm not gonna deal with this. Or, I'm gonna let it go because yeah, it triggers and forget it. I mean, there could be an explosion. So I love what you said, just knowing your triggers. Jeanette, I think
Mm.
you were gonna say something, right?
I was just gonna say when Daisy had she said a phrase that I liked that said, it can't work well without God.
Mm,
Mm.
I
that's so
Mhm.
like
true.
I'm like,
Yeah.
t-shirt idea.
That's good, right? Because we need God, right, for everything, everything.
Yeah.
It baffles me how some people can just live life without God. How do you live life
Mhm.
without God? Like I think about the way I used to be and how my life was, and I compare it to the way it is now, and I'm like, there's no way that I could continue my life without God and
Yeah.
what I've experienced, in my walk. on this journey with Jesus. And so I'm so thankful for his love towards us. But just to conclude, um, what would you say to a person who is dealing with anger, not necessarily towards God, but just anger, period, either towards God or a situation, and how would you encourage them? I know we talked a little bit about it, but how would you encourage our listeners? I mean, we talked about surrender, right? We talked about how they just need to surrender, but is there anything else that we can add on to that?
For me, I would just say, knowing now what I know now, if I knew back then, but knowing now what I know now, I would say that it gets better, okay, and it's okay to have um, questions and to talk to God real. He can handle it. So I know I said that before, but I think that is so important to know that God can handle our pains, our hurts, our anything that we throw, his way. Well, first of all, he created it. He
Yeah.
created us. He knit us together in our mother's wombs. He knows what we're going through. He wants us to go to him. He wants us to lay it at his feet, go to his throne of grace. Like, it says in the Bible, it says that we can come to his throne of grace with boldness and
Yes.
confidence. That means
Confidence.
that
Yeah.
we can go to him with boldness. That means that he can handle it. He
Right.
can handle
Right.
being bold and saying, God, I am, this is happening. I don't understand. So just being real with God.
Right. Right.
That's my
Yeah.
thought.
A- Anybody else want to add
Well,
on?
I would say that, remembering that God, he's a God of the tiny little minute thing, and he's the God of the biggest thing ever that could happen on earth, the wars and the
Mm,
ecosystems and, all of those things. Because sometimes and I've heard people say things like, oh, it's just a little thing, but, little things can grow into big things.
right.
And so knowing that nothing is too small for God, nothing is inconsequential for God, anything that impacts us. I was listening to a devotion on the radio, and the woman was talking about, some people think that praying for the elevator, to get to your floor
Mhm.
next is so little. And I know I have this battle with my husband. It's like, I'll get somewhere where I need a parking space, and Lord, you've identified a place where I'm going to put this car so that I can get to my appointment on time. Show me, lead me to that place. So she was saying, like, yeah, God is interested in all of me, in the little tiny things and in the big things of me. So why not pray for the elevator to come, like
Right.
right now? Um, I'm always in communication with God. So I felt so great listening to that, because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who, God, you saw the parking space. Just lead me there, because I can't see it,
Mhm.
and he leads me there, so yeah.
It's funny that you say that because I think about not necessarily the parking space, but the traffic. I'm like, Lord, open the way.
I say that
And then
about
I think,
a husband, but
and
Jesus
then, yeah,
hasn't
and then
led
I
me
think
to a
about,
man yet.
well, maybe you should have left 2 minutes earlier.
Yeah, I
But
was I was just about to say there's times that I'll be like, but God, please make a way. And then I feel like God's like,
time
if you had
management.
left.
Well, we
No,
do need
I
to be
think that God
responsible.
is. I think that God, like, if there's traffic or somebody like stops me or things are slow, that there's something that He's protecting me from up
Mhm.
ahead. So when I like start to feel like, how come I can't get where I'm at? And then I'm like, okay, you're protecting me from something.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'll relax.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Every
okay.
time I drive. But
Yeah. Well, God is always on my side, I feel like he's always on my
yes,
side.
yes.
So what the heck? It doesn't matter if I am 3 minutes late for an appointment. They're going to say something like, you know what, the person before you is running a little late. It's okay. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
God took care of that for me, so I'm good.
That's
Yeah.
good. So, so I want to end with this. I had read that how we handle our anger is crucial. Anger is an emotion, right? Anger is an emotion. And so, um, anger is not a sin, but it's what we do with that that can lead to sin.
Mhm.
And so I just want to encourage our listeners, that if you're dealing with some type of anger, that you take it to the Lord. He is the best person that you can run to. I think of scripture where it says, Mark 12:30, love the Lord your God with all your heart,
Mhm.
everything, right? With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And I just want to encourage you all and stay the course, and we are here for you. So, we love you, and we pray that God will bless your life and cover you all in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name,
Amen.
blessings all.
Bye.
Hi.